Hey everybody, back again. If you saw this little crossbow, it got me thinking, right? This thing, when fully strung tight, pulls at about 155 pounds. And this long recurve that's about 5 feet long, with fiberglass reinforcement, pulls at about 65 pounds. You know, the longer the piece of PVC pipe, the more leverage that you have, the less force it's gonna take to get to full draw. Whereas the shorter the limb, the more force it's gonna take to bend those limbs down. So, what happens if I take, this is 2 feet. What happens if I take a 3-foot piece, so 2 feet shorter than this, and a foot longer than this, but I reinforce it with one 2-foot piece of fiberglass? What kind of poundage of bow is this gonna produce? Well, let's go grab the heat gun, go grab our piece of fiberglass rod, go grab our 3 foot of pipe, get started. We've got our 3-foot section of PVC pipe, marked out the ends at 6 inches on either side, and then 2 inches from center on either side to create our handle. So the limbs are actually only gonna be as long as our fiberglass rod here. These are going to be recurved, but this is only going to have 1 rod in it compared to the 3 that was in the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and, just like the other one, we're going to start our heat molding process. But first, we're going to slide this in. You'll notice I've got duct tape around the center here, just thick enough to where I can force it into our pipe here. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and made sure that it goes right in the center, in between our markings here. So our handle's gonna be a little bit thick because of that duct tape inside there, but I'll compress it the best I can, just like I usually do, to add strength, since this is gonna be such a short bow. And then each one of our limbs, like I said, we're gonna do a recurve on this, and we're gonna have 1 foot on either side. It's the actual limb portion. So we got it nice and squishy. We're just gonna go ahead and start pressing down that handle. Thicker where that duct tape is, and that's okay. I want it to hold that duct tape tight in place while I do the limbs, so that way the fiberglass doesn't shift around when I'm making my limbs. And I'm not going for perfectly flat here. I'm going for more of a taper. Like, my fiberglass rod sits right where I want it to on this side, which means it's going to be doing the same thing on the other side. So let's go ahead and shape that other limb the same way that we just did this one. And after we've done that, we'll go ahead and start working on our ends. Just like we did on the other one, we're going to create that same kind of taper. Okay, so now our limbs are both tapered, and they're holding right up against that fiberglass rod on the inside, right where I want it. So everything inside of here is nice and tight. We've got this holding real tight up against that duct tape bundle in the center of our fiberglass. So that way it's less flexile through here in the handle, and then it sits straight right up against the back of each of these limbs. And on these, we're actually going to be tapering them opposite, so the same direction as the handle. What I've done is I've actually flattened these opposite our main bend. So our limb is going to be here, and we've got a nice thick spot that tapers up. When all is said and done, only the 1 foot on either side is going to be bending. So this is essentially going to be a fiberglass reinforced 2-foot pressure section for the limbs. Make sure that you don't collapse your walls, that you don't make your walls too fat doing this. Kind of just using my wood here as my marker, so I can make sure I'm getting the same bend on both of them. So we've got the rough shape going on now for our bow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how I want the ends of these limbs to look. I'm going to probably create a round section on the end of either side. So we're back, and as you can see, I had to curve the crap out of these to make the string possible to get on here. Right now, this is 240 pounds to get to 24 inches. I cannot draw that. What I can do is pull it back to 12 inches, where it sits at about 100-pound draw weight. So I have some 30-inch arrows. These are the only arrows I have for shooting bows at the moment. So I'm going to have to make some wood arrows for this that are short arrows, and that'll probably be another video. I'll forge some arrowheads. We'll have a the whole time of it. So I'm gonna step back to 25 yards. I'm gonna draw it as far as I can, and I'm gonna see if I can even hit the target with a 30-inch arrow out of this bow, only drawing at 12 inches. And just so you guys can see the flight path, I'm gonna put you right behind the target. So you guys are at exactly 25 yards. So at 25 yards, it's hard to aim this thing because you can't really look down the bow. It's more instinctive shooting. I got 2 really low, 2 really high, and 2 off to the side. I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot it some more just to show you guys the release and all that fun stuff on it as it sits right now, and show you that 10 to 12 inches of draw that I can get on this thing. Oh wow, yeah, it's punching a lot harder. Oh, that one chipped out some of that hardwood. That is punching seriously hard at a close range. So let's see. That one went a good distance in. They're going about 7 to 8 inches into the foam. And through the wood, look at that, that tore a piece of particle board out with it. That's wild. So through the wood, they're going about the same, and oh wow, that one went about 5 inches, 6 inches into the foam through the wood. The one that took the chunk with it only went a couple inches, but I think that's because it started carrying the weight of that projectile as well. And I'm gonna have to make some shorter arrows. The arrows themselves are as long as the bow, so that's pretty wild. And with how high this draw weight is, I just can't pull these arrows far enough back to justify having this much weight. So I just remembered I actually had 3 of these that still survived. These were the experimental arrows I made. So I actually just cut them down to 18 inches so I can shoot them out of this a little more efficiently. But they are shorter, so let's see how they fly out of this, see if they're faster, a little more potent. They are blunt. Like I said, I just cut them off. I didn't sharpen them or anything, so they might just bounce off the foam, but we'll see. Duct tape is sharp, folks. Duct tape is sharp. Those first couple shots cut my hand, so I just grabbed the first glove I saw. Welding glove will work just fine. Once I make an arrow rest for this, it should work a lot better. So yeah, they are just bouncing right off because they're blunt tips. Let's get you guys some over-the-shoulder type shots, just so you can see what it looks like from my perspective. I'm going to switch back to these, just because I like it when it sticks in the target and those blunt ones are bouncing off. Whew. This thing is a workout to pull. It does a really good job. I wish it was a little lighter. If this is a strength training bow, if you're trying to work your arms and your back, this works awesome. When you're close, like 10-15 yards, it has enough output for hunting and for fighting. And when you're fighting on horseback, you want something that you can just aim instinctively fast and fire. So I've discovered kind of why they did that. That was low. But if you just pull this back as hard as you can, and you fire it quickly, you could get up to a pretty high fire rate with not really bad accuracy at all. It's just kind of a look where you're shooting and pull until your fingers slip off because you can't hold it any longer. And since we've got a shorter bow with arrows that are as long as it, I might keep trying to get good with this, because I could learn to grab, place, knock, and shoot at once. So knock and shoot. Oh, low. But you can see what I mean about the rate of fire you can get out of something like this. I mean, this is my first time trying to use a bow like fast-paced like this, but I love it. This little thing's awesome. And it shoots great. So now I'm just going to try and focus on shooting into that big box as fast as I can with these arrows. And I'm going to time myself with this. So this is going to be something that I can do to practice speed shooting with a hunting bow or a war bow like this. These were really cool little cavalry bows. And go. So the last little bit of sunlight as the sun sets, I'm gonna step back 25 yards and see what I can do. Pulled that one way off. That was a much better shot. Thing was horrible because my arms are really tired by now. Probably getting this thing back 8 inches instead of 10 or 12 at this point. Oh. But it's launching these 30-inch arrows at a pretty ridiculous speed. For how big and heavy these arrows are for such a little short draw weight. Like I said, I am going to be getting some better arrows for this in the future that will fly much faster and much straighter. So I'm going to go get this bow painted. I'm going to unstring it and get the paint job all taken care of on this crazy thing. And then I'll show you guys how it looks after that, and that'll be the end of the video for today. In another video, just like with the crossbow that we've got, we're going to be making some specialty arrows for this thing. So we are now back from painting. We went nice and bright on the hoofs on this thing. Horse bow, war bow kind of critter. I still have the string off because I'm going to do my wrap here in a second on the handle and put the arrow rest on there and everything, because this will definitely need it. It took a good chunk out of my hand there with the fletching. So I'm gonna make sure to get a nice hand rest on that so we don't have to worry about those arrows riding the hand, especially when we start making the homemade ones, because duct tape is very sharp. Just figured I'd give you guys a little bit of a better look at our finished bow here. Ignore the smudges on the paint. I'll repaint that later. It was a little too wet when I started putting things together, but that's okay. I can fix that. So we are back from our wrap and our paint job, and we have our bow all assembled and finished. We've got those nice big flanges. I don't know what you exactly call these. If you know what these are called, drop it in the comments. But they are kind of like imitation horse hoof kind of shapes. So this is a horseback archer's bow for sure. This is like the Mongol or Ottoman style horseback high poundage bows. I have another 4 feet of PVC, which is a foot longer than this, and I might make an exact clone of this, but a different color and stuff that's not got the fiberglass, just to see how much lighter that one is, because I'm sure that one will be much easier to draw to, like 20-24 inches than this one will. I'm sure it'll still be a very high poundage, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 100 pounds, but this is ridiculous. I did not expect I expected to have a high draw weight, but I did not expect it to have this high of a draw weight where I can't even get it past 10 or 12 inches at most. And that's when I'm fresh. As I tire, I can only get this thing to 8 or 10 inches. But that does it for today's video. If you guys like what you've seen, you know what to do. Do the thing right there. And until next time, God bless, stay sharp out there. If you're looking for a custom sharp object, check out the Etsy store.